Rowe.
Here.
City Attorney Joseph Public.
Here.
And City Manager Tom O'Neill.
Here.
Okay, the first item is the approval of the CRA meeting minutes of March 24th, 2015. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Announcements, Mr. O'Neill.
I have none at this time.
Mr. Public.
Nothing from me either, Mayor.
Open to the public.
Good evening, Council. Rich Melton, 5342 Blue Point. I wanted to follow up on the Bayou Business Association's last conversations with the CRA Board. It was left uncertain whether the CRA Board Council would be able to keep the commitment they made during the August CRA meeting to install new street lighting in the Bayou Business District with a time frame, design and install wayward signage for the Bayou District, and commitment to dredge the channels 18 and 1. Obviously, if the city is indeed successful in securing the Restore Act funds, it would reduce the required CRA funding for dredging channels 1 and 18, which we would hope would be reallocated to deserving redevelopment projects like fixing up the closed fishing piers, maybe bringing together planning efforts for either a sidewalk or a boardwalk throughout the business district. We are also hoping that the city does their commitments that they made during the August meeting, but if the city is not able to keep their earlier commitments, we were wanting to find out what sort of collaborative efforts we should expect from the city in regards to other development or redevelopment projects that the Bayou Business Association is currently working on. Members of the BBA attended the CRA Summit last week, where a great deal of information was gleaned. The lead presenter confirmed that indeed the use of the community CRA is what the annual requirements are of the CRA board, and indeed that there can be individual CRA districts within a city-wide CRA, which I did not know. On the last point, and as a formal request, the Bayou Business Association would like to request from the Port Richey waterfront identified the outline map would be designated as its own CRA district due to its unique attributes. This would greatly help focus on the targeted redevelopment area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tall order. First of all, Joe, maybe you can help me with this. When we originally did the CRA, it was my recollection that we determined the city was in its entirety a blighted area, and they're part of the CRA.
That's my recollection of the documents as well, Mayor.
And I don't know if it's possible to change course in midstream.
That I'm not sure. I don't, my gut's telling me you can't, that you would need to create those special sub-districts at the time of the creation of the CRA.
Yeah. All right, with respect to landscaping and lighting, I think it's been our direction and purpose to go forward with, as soon as we can, with those items, and we have been committed to that. You assume, Tom, that you've been working on?
Yes, that's correct. We have met with Duke Energy out in the field and gone over various proposals. They're going to be getting me something in writing along with a plan soon. I can give that to you. There are other alternatives that we've corresponded on that we may be able to get some other potential contractors identified and get some other proposals for your consideration. But we have met with them. They promised us an answer within 30 days.
Okay. All right. With respect to the dredging issue, it's my impression that we're not going to do anything directly until we get the Restore Act funds. Is that pretty much how it stands?
Well, that has been my assessment of your direction, is that we needed to get the Restore Act money in order to apply it toward those particular projects. We've identified those projects in our multi-year implementation plan for the Restore Act money. That can be changed if you decide so in the future, but that's the funding mechanism that we have identified.
Okay, again, because at the budgetary sessions last year, we scrambled to get any funds available on the budget limitations we had to solidify and follow our commitment to the landscaping, to our desire to work in conjunction with the Business Association for improvement. But there were scarce funds available. And certainly, I speak for myself and not for council that, you know, the landscaping and the signage and lighting are a priority. And obviously, we're looking to do some street improvements in the district as well. But even when we made the commitment last year, those funds were minuscule funds. All right, anyone else? Okay, any comments from the
No, didn't we?
Board.
We were still in public comment, weren't we?
pardon me?
We were still in public comment.
Sorry, didn't want to cut you off. Sandy, come on up.
Hello? Sandra Spaldi, 8207 Old Post Road. Okay. I come from the city. At one point, I had 3 businesses going. The cities never did anything for the businesses. The businesses did for the city, okay? As far as dredging goes, what happened? I thought they were gonna pay for some of their dredging. I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure I heard that. What happened to that? Why are they asking for all this? Blighted the city? The whole city was blighted in order for us to receive CRA money. Why should we take our money and put it there? They saw the city before they opened their business. They knew the problems. They knew what had to be done. You don't go into a city and have the city change everything around for your business. Hello, anybody in there? I mean, you know, what's going on? We have sidewalks right down, but no, we go over here so that their property is clear so they can park. What's that all about? You know, everybody has to have bendability, but bendability has to be both ways. And with the city, you have residents, which have to be included in everything. It seems that this business association and the businesses could care less about the residents. We said fine about these little things going up and down the street, and fine about this and fine about that, but there's got to be a point where it stops. Let the businesses take care of themselves a little bit. Otherwise, move your business. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baldy. Yes, Mr. Lee.
Blaine Lee, 5713 Berlin. I'm not against any improvements anyplace in this city. And Lord knows there's a lot of improvements that could be made in a lot of places. But my worry is that we make the wrong improvements at the wrong time. And if we're gonna do something, someplace, make sure what we do is in the right order, that we don't have to redo it because we decide to do something else differently later on down the road. Let's, you know, just get our ducks in a row, so to speak, if we're gonna do something, and make sure we're not paying for something twice. Thank you.
All right. Bringing it back to council, comments from, the board. Any comments from members of the board?
I've got a couple questions. Well, first of all, I noticed there was an email came through on the parking question that we had asked Tom to go out and find out what those properties were available and what the prices were, and I believe everybody's seen those. The other thing is the piers. I was wondering if we've had any movement or in any way toward repairing those piers or getting any further since last we talked on it. I think
it would be great if we could get some, they call PSA testing on those concrete footings. We could piggyback off the county, they've done it before. See no problem working with them on that. And I'd like to find out, especially that one next to Whiskey River where we're at with those footings, because that really makes that project doable if those footings are still have their integrity. The other thing, I wanted to ask the city manager where we're at with the Florida Communities Trust. I've seen some emails go back and forth. I guess there's some communication with them from citizens within the city. And to my knowledge, we have not made any attempt to contact them or change or ask for a change in the way that park is set up right now. Is there any movement, or do you plan any movement soon on that?
Well, yes. What I have done and copied all members of the council / CRA on is correspond with the Florida Communities Trust to inform them of our potential intent to modify the management plan. We have brought in Wade Trim to assist us. And then we learned, as I believe you know, that we've had a number of comments on the city's proposed projects. So I feel like before we spend any other consultant money, that we need to work with Mr. Curtis Franklin to address those comments, and those will be upcoming. And we may need to address them by virtue of doing some additional environmental mitigation. And so the management plan, we haven't proceeded with a submittal yet, but we've notified Florida Communities Trust of our intent to submit to have that amended.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, you had noted in regards, and we have those figures here relating to the paint fix-up. I'm sorry, go ahead. I've just
Okay.
was gonna bring up the point that that's obviously something we're gonna examine.
We're gonna get to that.
And we have totals, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Just a real quick comment on the lighting and whatnot. You know, I just want us to be fair to everybody within the city. So if we're doing something for one area, we need to be able to afford to do it for other businesses. I want us to keep that in mind when we're making that decision.
Well, and I agree. We serve an entire city here. We have a lot of things we'd like to do, but we can't let our ambitions overreach our budget. That's for sure. And as has been mentioned, in public comment, we don't need to be throwing any money down any rabbit holes. I mean, we need to make sure what it is we spend is exactly what we want and is reasonable. We spent a lot of time talking about the piers. The last talk we had about it, to my knowledge, was both piers were cost more money to continue work on than we were willing to spend on the time, including additional engineering on the limestone pier. So that's just my recollection.
Well, we have a demolition amount also that was provided, is that correct? On
Yes, we got structural engineering reports on both piers that indicated to you the extent of the deterioration. Both piers are not acceptable for public access at this point. We did apply for a state appropriation through Senator Wilton Simpson
Right.
to effectively rehabilitate the pier off limestone. The other pier is not likely to receive any grant money, and we've talked about it on multiple occasions. You may want to have me agenda that item and figure out where you want to go at this point on it.
I would, because, I think, we need to look at this timeline. We've talked about the amount. We're all familiar with that. We talked about the poor engineering that existed some years ago, that, this needs something done. Both are still in poor condition. They're not going to get any better. I think, you know, when you know, it's funny, and thank you, Nancy, for bringing this article forward. Part of this, when I look at this Miller's Bayou, and then I start to think about Waterfront Park. And, you know, first there's conversations of an extreme amount of money to change bathrooms, do this, do that, that the park's going to be used for a lot of other things. Well, it remains used today, mainly as a dog park, and maybe a couple of birthdays here and there. You know, its use has been limited, and, you know, the conversation still about the bridge itself, or the pier itself, you know, I just think I'd feel better we had a timeline on committing ourselves to making a decision in these cases.
I will schedule that for review by the CRA at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, anything else?
You haven't heard anything more from Senator Simpson's office at all?
I have talked with Miss Judy Parker recently, and she did not have any new news on it, but I felt pretty good about it, but we'll see what happens.
All right. Moving forward to council business, we have a discussion of CRA community grant programs. Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, I listed this to basically give you an update on your commercial and residential grant approvals and the budgetary amounts that have been expended so far. We did reduce the amount in the grant programs to $50,000. They have been almost expended at this point. It previously was $100,000. I wanted to put this in front of you and see whether or not that you wanted to continue with this program. There are various items in here that you may want to consider either deleting or changing in some form or another. The two items that stick out to me are the funding of residential AC units, and also there is a requirement in the residential areas that if a new home is built, we provide $5,000 in incentive money. We may have some new homes built in the near future off Washington Street, and that would obligate the CRA for some additional dollars that aren't budgeted at this time. So I wanted to put it in front of you and see what you wanted to do, whether you wanted to change it. If indeed you do, we would prepare a resolution for your consideration at an upcoming meeting.
Yeah, it looks like the number was 49,386 of the 50. My first question, did that include the irrigation 5K that we had set up as well, or?
That's funded out of the utility system.
Okay, so that was separate. That still exists, is
Yes,
that
it
right?
does.
Okay. That was my first question. I guess the other, you know, I completely agree. When we talk about the residential AC, I think in the past we provided $150,000 grant initially, and that was maybe for 1 or 2 years. Then that was lowered at 100, and then of course now lowered at 50. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. I know we go back and we see the 108,639 that relates to 1314. Obviously, the ACs represent the larger contribution of that at almost 33,000. And more recently, the 1415 new AC takes on an even more dominant, almost double the amount of any line item in there at in excess of 26,000. You mentioned making these changes. I would certainly be in favor when we consider both those HVAC units and also the 5K contribution relating to the new home. So I'll be in favor of that.
You know, I think the purpose of this fix-up was to encourage people to truly fix up and improve
Yeah.
properties that had deteriorated, and the AC component is more of a subsidy than something that is going to visually improve the appearance of the house. So I think we ought to eliminate the AC subsidy. With regard to the $5,000 per home, that is the commitment of the CRA for anyone who builds a new home to subsidize them to the extent of $5,000.
Yes, the brochures are in your packet.
Okay, and the purpose of that was to encourage new building, obviously. We are now at a point where some of the new building is going to occur because of the change in the economy. So, we can't afford it at this point. Is probably the bigger issue more than anything else. Whether we want to encourage new building or not, we don't have the funds. We may readdress that in the future, but it seems affordability is the king here, and we simply can't put ourselves in a deficit because of the budgetary situation.
Ask a question real quick, because you'd mentioned, and we went over these particular numbers, the dominant number when we add those up relating to AC. Some of those other numbers that represent exterior painting fall very low. One of them is 1,000 something, and you know, the only other one that even comes close has been roofs, that during the first 13 to 14 was almost 20,000. And that fell down to recently 7,000. And when you consider the exterior painting, when we talk about these improvements, that represented a very small percentage of the actual.
One of the things about roofs, and I don't know if it is the case in the city, but because of the insurance requirements, that the usable life be at least 5 years, and if it is not, the homeowner is going to face cancellation of policy if they don't put on a new roof. So to some extent, it seems to me that is a worthy kind of encouragement or assistance to those homeowners that are necessitated or required to do that.
So maybe by reframing, you would say we would force there to be obviously contributions into these other, in other words, more of a use factor might be related when we take out the HVAC component. You know, we're taking out what's been a very large component over the 3 cycles of the paint fix-up.
I'm in agreement on the $5,000 subsidy on, you know, the construction of new homes. Again, I think the economy has changed. I don't think that $5,000 is going to make a heck of a lot of difference as to whether somebody builds a house or not, especially in today's world where how much it's going to cost to build a house in Port Richey where it has to be elevated and all that. So I don't see where that's accomplishing a goal. It just makes things nice for the person building the house. The only thing I could say about the air conditioning kind of concerns me a little bit, because if I look at a piece of property that's got a busted up air conditioner or an old air conditioner, and these are, a lot of them might be borderline houses, and that might make the difference. You know, if they don't have the money to fix that air conditioner, it's almost unrentable, and you're almost creating blight to a certain degree. I'm not really creating blight, but I'm just saying the AC has an impact, even though it's not visual from the street. It may be causing some buildings to be occupied that would not necessarily be occupied if that extra help wasn't there to replace or replace that AC. Not repair, but replace. So, just a thought.
It's a thought, and I suspect if we ran down the figures, we would probably see that that many of the houses that have substantial value are getting assistance.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
to
sure.
defray the
You know,
costs.
and one might also say that you know, one other thing you might want to do with the whole darn program is essentially cap its use to units, houses valued at, say, $100,000 and under. You know, I mean, if you got a house that the structure is valued at $150,000 or $200,000 or $300,000, then you're not eligible for this.
Well, we have that list, and I can assure you most are above the 100,000 range.
Now, I'm not talking property. I'm talking just structure.
Mm-hmm.
Structure.
Yeah,
Structure.
Look at
only.
that list of new ACs. Yeah.
Just like I said.
Well,
I thought,
and
yeah.
I think Bill's point is somewhat
Right.
different, which is, as a board, we may just consider putting a value limit before we get the fix-up
Yeah.
grants. You know, are we providing subsidies, or are we intending to afford opportunity to people who couldn't necessarily go that direction to improve their property with some assistance from the city? Because obviously we've got a whole bunch of properties in the city that do need improvement. So, hard to know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
Just going back to the fairness to all. I mean, you're a resident here, you pay taxes, and, you know, should we smack you because, you know, you've done well? I don't think so.
Well, the real question is, are we about doing an equal playing field, or do we have a policy preference to seek improvement? You know, those are two different things.
Yeah, and I have to agree. I mean, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's a CRA, it's to attack blight, it's targeted to a specific purpose. It's not just a pot of gold that everybody should get, you know, their fair dip out of. If you've been fortunate in life and have a very, very nice house, you know, that's terrific. But by giving a subsidy to a person, you know, a homeowner like that or a property owner like that, we're not fighting blight. We're not doing with our CRA money what CRA money ought to be doing. And that's not saying there's not a lot of other places in CRA where we're, you know, not putting the money in the direction it ought to be going. But,
Exactly, I'm
you
just
know.
getting ready to say.
yeah,
$1
you know,
million.
I understand, but you know, that was just the basis of my statement of basing the availability of a grant on some figure, like I said, an assessed value of the structure is more likely to put that money into roofs and air conditioners that truly are fixing blight, as opposed to others that these are folks that they're gonna do the roof anyway. They've got the funds to do it, and you know, God bless them for that. And I'll leave it to that.
Well, was there thought that the 50K was gonna drop off, period? There wouldn't be any of those funds.
Well, we're gonna be facing that shortly.
Well, I mean, you know, 150 to 100 to 50 to 0.
Well, I think we should go forward at least with the $5,000 on the homes. You know, if we can't.
What I could do, if you would like me to, is to prepare a resolution for your consideration, and we'll list that at the next meeting. And you know, you can decide which parts of the program you want to proceed with and continue, and give us direction on that.
Well, the whole point of this is it's all financial.
Yes, it's
So-
it's a program that's designed and implemented in many CRAs to sustain or improve property values and leverage private investment on private property. And you've done that successfully. And you know, at this point, we've got limitations on what we actually can do, and there are some parts of the program that probably do little to sustain property values, because the property values are set by the appraiser based on comparable values, and you know, you have an opportunity here to just relook at this. I could put a sample or example resolution, and you could change it as you see fit. It's discretionary, and we can go from there. We can put it on at the next meeting.
Okay.
Anyone from the public wishing to speak to this? Yes, Mr. Melton.
Yes, thank you very much. I've been patiently waiting because Rich Melton, 5342 Blue Point. I'm in complete agreement with Tom in the fact that we don't need this for this particular time, and there are better served programs for our city to be utilizing from Pasco County. Now, Pasco County's PACE program has been advanced for this exact situation you're talking about, roofs, air conditioners. I see no need to give people this type of credit through using the CRA money, because a complete other program is much more beneficial to the city and has far more reaching value for our residents.
Thank you. Ms. Tonkin.
And just to elaborate, Kristen Tonkin, representing the BBA. Just to elaborate a little bit more on the PACE program, what it is an individual will go, and it's like kind of like a loan, and they pay over time for a roof or or air conditioner. So it's a good program that the county has. That's it.
Thank you. All right. Bring it back to council. So is it, good board, is it the desire of members of the board that we go ahead and have the city manager go ahead and develop a resolution, and then we can set our priorities?
Yep.
Is good?
Yep.
All right.
Quick question. Mr.
Yes.
O'Neill, this PACE program, is that available to city of Port Richey residents?
Yes, it is. Building official and I have discussed this, and we've met with an individual that's attempting to forward this organization and program within Pasco County. And it's my understanding that it's available at this time.
There are a few caveats that come with that, though, and you have to be up on your mortgage and things like that, so people that are not in good situation may not qualify for it. I don't know what else is.
Is it essentially a
there were-
loan program?
Yes.
Yeah, it's basically, it's a little different because instead of the person owning the loan, the house owns it. So it transfers with the title.
Right, right. Yeah.
So it gives people an avenue to improve.
Understood, yeah.
And do the things they need to do to the house if they can't really fork out the money right now. But it comes in at 5%, I believe.
Okay. Anything else before the board, before we adjourn?
Nope.
All right, we stand adjourned.
It's a good program. I don't think it's for everybody. It's definitely not for the poor, because they're not gonna be up to date on the mortgages that they're. But there were 2 or 3 things that, I can't remember all the rules and regulations, but it's a good program. It'll help. It'll help some of these people want to pick up a home and fix it. But you can only have one. It's not for people